Hey, morning. So, thanks for coming. This is the title, that's my name. I've been designing games for almost 13 years, and I recently co-founded a new company. Previously, I was the lead designer of games like Phantom Doctrine and Hard West, and before that, I worked at Techland and did multiplayer design for all Call of Juarez games, except the good one. So, I was told I'm supposed to have a talk agenda at the beginning, but mine is like really bad. So briefly, here's what to expect. And as you can see, it's about themes and some more themes, and systems and themes. And my thing broke. It doesn't work. Niedziała. No nieważne. I'll be talking using examples mostly from our latest game, Phantom Doctrine. Phantom Doctrine is a strategic turn-based espionage thriller set at the peak of the Cold War, and we've received some high notes, including a 9 out of 10 from GameSpot, and got a decent meta and user score, respectively 74 and 73. And occasionally, I'll compare Phantom Doctrine with our previous game, called Hard West. It sold over 400,000 copies, and Hard West got about 44 Metacritic reviews, which in this game weight is a lot. It's at least 2 times more than the average. Similarly decent meta and user score, respectively 74 and 77. So here's how Hard West stacks against Phantom Doctrine. Phantom took almost twice as long by twice the team, and it seems that quality-wise, it's exactly the same thing. So throughout this talk, I'll also try to answer the question, what the hell happened? Strong theme and mood have been listed as a major positive in over 90% of press reviews for both games. However, it's occasionally exploded, and here's how. So first, how theme and scope are intertwined, and why to avoid that, and how to avoid that. So first, I need to take you back in time to 2015, when Hard West was released, so we can follow our trail of thought with Phantom Doctrine. So the main kind of feedback we got for Hard West was there's no territory management, there's no base building, there's no character development. Basically, it's not XCOM enough. So in Phantom Doctrine, we decided to fix all that and add all that. So we increased the budget, we increased the time, we increased the scope, and Phantom has base management. It has a world map, has character development, and exactly just like XCOM, it has multiplayer component that no one ever plays, and all the systems and features were there to support the theme. All systems are very interconnected, and so we did encounter a lot of problems when we wanted to cut or scale down some features. Now, cutting meant the theme and structure will fall apart. Now, in order to preserve the theme and structure and still be able to modify scope, we started building features in a modular way. We started with defining the minimum viable product, like the smallest possible version of the feature that does the job, and we treat all the other ideas as expansion modules that may or may not be implemented. This way you don't risk damaging your theme, because instead of cutting out features, you can just easily scale them down by taking out modules. 2, how your theme can create or emphasize systemic problems. The best example I have needs some explaining first, so please bear with me. So way back in the day, in classic XCOM, you could accidentally run straight into an enemy. Accidents like that are not very tactical. In general, strategic and tactical gameplay is about how you handle information. Nowadays, characters stick to cover, in most games like that, peeking out. It's called sidestepping. However, that doesn't solve everything. Consider a single tile of hedge. Hedge isn't exactly cover, so no cover sidesteps because the characters don't stick to it. If this tile was solid cover, sidesteps would work, characters would peek and would see each other. So there's a massive discrepancy. So we added what we call free sidesteps. Characters can peek not only when sticking to cover, but anytime, anywhere. Now, given that Phantom Doctrine is predominantly interior-based, this solved a lot of unwanted surprises and made the game far more tactical. Sounds good, right? So, here's how this solution occasionally backfires. Characters just shoot through walls. It's not that frequent, but we've got a lot of negative feedback for this. Now, to solve this, I'll present you with a very simple design tool. It's not really even a tool, but a method of careful thinking. So in order to fix systemic design issues, it's good to go back in time and analyze your trail of thought. You'll usually find a couple of weak links that you can deviate from. So we wanted the player to have more information. And for tactical gameplay interiors, you need more information about enemy position. But you have to see a character to reveal them. So we broadened the definition of what it means to see someone. And because line of sight equals line of fire, thus more unclear cases of line of fire. And as a result, occasional shooting through walls. To untangle this situation, you have to take a step back and find the point that you can deviate from most easily. So for example, we could have revealed enemies that you hear and don't always see. So we could have removed, this way we could have removed the 3 side steps and no longer have cases of shooting through walls. But of course there would be other costs and other consequences that we would reveal only once it would be implemented and tested. So there's a more general lesson to be learned here. In systemic games, ludonarrative dissonance pertains to rules. Theme will get the player in a certain mood. This mood will affect how the players will interpret the rules of the game, because the narrative is built by your systems in forms of player stories. So game rules should go hand in hand with the game theme. If your theme is realistic, players might expect realistic rules. If your theme is abstract, players will be okay with abstract rules. We'll get back to this later on. 3, how your systems can support and conflict with the theme. So I wanted to make luck an important pillar of Hard West because it works with the theme. Luck is very Wild Westy, and people have a lot of ideas about how exactly luck works in real life. And often you can use the common understanding of an abstract concept like that and make it into a game mechanic. So Hard West luck system works like this. Characters have luck. Luck helps you dodge shots. When you shoot, target luck is reduced by the amount of equal to your accuracy. When target luck is depleted, you hit the target. So it kind of works like a force field. The reception of this was, in general, very good. It catered to the group of XCOM players who didn't like RNG. It gives you compelling predictability. It gives you it's new and it's fresh. So it sets Hard West apart from XCOM, so exactly what we wanted. We did a very similar thing in Phantom Doctrine. So as we all know, real agents like James Bond or Jason Bourne are trained to have great awareness, situational awareness, and they're constantly aware of their surroundings. They never get surprised by an attack, and you need to really wear them down to be able to shoot and hit them. So in Phantom Doctrine, awareness system replaced the luck system. So our characters can dodge shots when they see them coming. And mathematically, it's exactly almost the same system. But for some reason, a lot of players didn't like it. But why? Why did this system get good feedback in Hard West and bad feedback in Phantom Doctrine? Now consider what is the common standard system for chance to hit in a turn-based tactical game. Accuracy is a percentage chance to hit. You make a roll, and a roll lower than the chance to hit, and, well, you hit. Now, Hard West straight out lied about this to the gamer. We added a percentage symbol and called it chance to hit, which it wasn't, like, at all. There were no rolls there. And it was better perceived. Why? Because it was a simplification good enough for beginner players And expert players, either way, saw right through and appreciated the clockwork mechanic of the lag system. So how to do this right? How a system works and how it's presented to players are two completely different things. How it works is for the power players. How it's presented is for the new players. System mechanics and its presentation are two vastly different things and should be designed in separation. So in other words, if your new mechanic behaves like something familiar, just make it look familiar. Lie about your mechanics to onboard the new players better. Never let your theme confuse the player. As a rule of thumb, when in doubt, clarify the mechanics even if it will damage your theme. 4. How theme can affect the balance structure. There are two main gameplay layers in Phantom Doctrine. Actually more, but there are two key ones. And one is the tactical missions and the other one is the world map. Now in the world map, enemy AI will create events for you to react to. With almost all event types, one of your options is to start a tactical mission, where mission type is determined by the event type, okay? So for example, an attack an enemy agent on a mission to find out your hideout, and you'll have a tactical mission where you have to kill or capture one enemy agent. Or if enemy is plotting to assassinate an informer, start a mission to rescue an NPC. Now, we have a decent variety of mission types that are quite different. Ideally, given how many mission types there should be enough variety compared to other games at least. Players should, on average, play similar amounts of different missions. Yet we got backlash for repetition. Players said it's boring because they play one mission type over and over again. Now, turns out, with this structure, this could not be fixed. There are two conflicting ideas. And very often, when you encounter a major design problem, you can boil it down to two straight conflicting ideas. Now, one was balance frequency of the world events, which was directly tied to the balance frequency of tactical missions. Now, balance in the world map was tied to mission type balance. So when I balanced the frequency of the world map events, I broke the balance of tactical mission variety. World map events could never be equally balanced because they have different frequency and different conditions to be met before they can appear. Now, the solution was to balance systems separately. That's the big lesson here. Tactical missions and the world map missions should have been unrelated. Each of those should have been balanced in its own regard and then tied. Now, this would clearly damage the theme, obviously. So always watch out for situations where theme affects the balance because they will be problematic in every single case. 5. How theme can affect communication between the player and the game. So we wanted the game to be possibly endless at any point. You don't have to proceed unless you want to. You can collect loot, gather secrets, level up your agents. And when you feel ready, you can move on. There's no pressure, more or less. Except it's a spy game about, conspiracies and Cold War. But apart from that, no pressure. And our estimate was 40-hour campaign playthroughs. And the feedback was, it's a boring, repetitive grind with 100-hour playthroughs. Like, what the hell? Why would the players take more time to go through the campaign and complain about it? Like, why would they make their path boring and then complain that it's boring? Now, to untangle this, you must first know how the big campaign loop works. Now, the game is split into what we call campaign stages in a string of pearls structure. Campaign stage is the open part between two story missions, where players take on generated missions between the story missions. Story mission, generated, story mission. Now, for each stage, there's a finite pool of stuff they can find at random. And when player chooses to do so, they can proceed to the next story mission and start the new campaign stage with new loot to find. Now, players delayed going to the story missions for very long periods of time. Why? Now, players can play infinite number of missions with finite, I don't know, shit. Let's assume finite. No, finite, infinite, finite, probably finite. With finite number of random loot drops and random unlocks. But they don't know when they got it all, okay? They don't know when they should proceed. Like, they can proceed anytime they want. They just never get the message that this is the right moment to go on. The reason player was kept in the dark was the theme. Now, how could spies possibly know if they stole all the secret documents from the secret conspiracy hideout? That's part of the fantasy. Like, not knowing what is out there, not knowing what the secrets are. They're not really secrets if you have like a, shopping list of secrets to find. But at the same time, players will want to know if they got it all, because obviously, if there's something to find or to catch, obviously they want to catch it all. So players want to know if they accomplished their internal goal that they set for themselves. So clearly, communicate game states regardless of the theme. Now, well-paced means something completely different for every single player. Just tell the player when it's okay to proceed. 6, how to build systems based on theme that will reinforce it. So in Phantom Doctrine we have this feature called the investigation board. You collect bits of information, files, photos, shit like that, and you make the connections to figure out the key information. And the feedback was very good. This is just like the movies. We put in a lot of effort to turn this prototype into something good, but this still felt wrong. It was papers out of scale, laid out on a desk, connected with abstract lines. So not looking, well, crazy at all, because that's what we're looking for, like a feeling of craziness. Then we transformed it into something much better that would deliver the right fantasy with the right details. Now, to do this right, pick one interaction that you want to simulate for your player and get to the bottom of this. Like, for example, in Ace Attorney, the key new interaction is finding the contradiction in the statement that you hear. You don't have to learn the law. You don't have to, go through the law course and whatever. It boils down to one very simple interaction. Now find the winning game state and fail game state that feel just right. And you have to get these moments right, because these key moments will deliver your theme in your new game mechanic. So this went right. We got the fantasy right with correct details. What it really means to do to perform this action. Investigation board is about connecting related things, and that's exactly the only interaction you do there. But of course, there were other issues with this. So, on average, about 20 hours into the game, players no longer were surprised by it and got bored. So, back in the day when we were making Phantom Doctrine, we feared, because it was something new and we didn't have a point of reference, we feared that players might grow tired of it. So we made it possible to automate and skip the whole thing. And when you look at achievement stats, at least 91% did use the skip mechanic. Now, players wanted to play this so much, not to skip it. They wanted it to get boring, to not get boring in any foreseeable future. The problem is the longevity of the feature. And again, we have two conflicting goals here. One, players can solve infinite number of case files on the investigation board. Second, it doesn't get boring. But obviously, everything will get boring eventually. So the solution, how to do this right? First, write out how many times the feature is supposed to ideally show up in the game. Obviously, infinite is not an answer. We know that now. 3 is an answer. 3,000 are both good answers. Now, plan exactly how much content in that feature do you need for this many occurrences. plan it precisely. How many different actions of various kinds will the player carry out? Then encourage the player and then reward them to stick to this satisfying rhythm and schedule that you designed for them. Now you need to keep the audience hungry for more, obviously. Now if I knew the best, for example, if I knew the best magic trick in the world, and you only saw it once, I just did the trick once, you'd be in awe, you'd be like amazed that, wow, this was the best trick ever. But if I showed it over and over, like obviously you would get bored. It wouldn't be that impressive. So in order for your gameplay mechanics to be magical, keep the audience hungry for more. Carefully plan the pacing of how often do you use the feature on the player. 7. How to cover any feature with a coat of theme paint. So Phantom Doctrine has this feature called support powers. Before the mission, assign agents to support powers like sniper, spotter, grenade launcher, whatever, and you place them outside of the mission area. Now, gameplay-wise, these are just directional global cast abilities with a nice cutscene. And this went really well. It was just enough. It was a very cheap system. It was simple directional cast abilities and had a couple of cheap cutscenes. Obviously relatively cheap, but still. Now, the lesson learned here is that the final effect was exactly the same as the first trivial prototype, plus all the bells and whistles. Now, the prototype was very effective and perfectly accurate. Now, too often, prototypes we all make have very, very, very little in common with the final result, and the more they differ, the more messy the production is bound to be. Now, make sure your prototype is exactly the gameplay you intend to have, and not like half of it, and then we'll see what happens. Prototype should always be abstract. Making a feature fit the theme is so much easier than making a good feature. It's easy to convince yourself and the team and all the stakeholders and whatever to a bad mechanic wrapped in a good theme. So remember, first, the gameplay, second, a coat of paint. Theme, paint. Okay, I'm going too fast again. Anyway, 8, on how every theme is a context in which words mean different things. So the initial goal of this feature that we had, called the simultaneous orders, was to provide some change in turn-based monotony. The idea was give the player an option to act out orders simultaneously. Players could give out any orders to all agents and do it all at once. Now the problem was, this feature was not particularly good for anything. Sure, I can do a couple of things at once, but why would I? It even makes more clicks. It takes more clicks this way. If your game is turn-based, you can't easily make it not turn-based. I assure you of that. So we narrowed it down to a single context, a single use we call breach. What breach means is you have all your agents enter a room and shoot everyone inside. It's useful because it counters their defense, then they don't do reaction shots. They won't trigger an alarm while you're breaching. And it's just 3 clicks. You choose the breach, you choose the room to breach, and you confirm, and that's it. So it's far less clicks than doing it manually. Now, because that's what it means in this particular theme. Breach means to enter a room simultaneously and neutralize everyone in range. Well, that's a lengthy definition, but you get the idea. So how to do this right? Make one use case of your feature work perfectly well. And, well, obviously, if you've got the money, make more. But ask yourself this. Can your feature be shown, and more importantly, experienced at the push of a single button? Or 3. We had 3, but that was good. And, oops, last part. So, a quick final word on how weirdness is good for your theme, and how a weird theme is good for you. So in a setting that fully depicts a realistic situation or context, you'll be constantly wondering how far you can go with your own inventions. It's like with biography movies, where usually the plot falls apart somewhere towards the end, because no real life is written according to the, say, 3-act structure. Usually, biographies are boring, hence movie biographies are boring. Give your setting a unique spin to allow for anything you desire. You need to give yourself means to channel all your design loose ends into, where unresolved logic problems go to die. So, for example, in Phantom Doctrine, obviously about spies, but with a massive worldwide conspiracy going on. And the key mediums here were this and this that we came up could have happened because someone was brainwashed. Ta-da! And like, no one knows how that works. No one knows how exactly brainwashing worked, or if it at all happened. So you can throw in pretty much anything you want. And the conspiracy theories were all true all along. And we're suckers for conspiracy theories, and a small part of us all wants them to be true. And in case of Hard West, which was Wild West but with demons and the occult, we made the assumption that the world of Hard West is where all the myths and legends were true. So again, anything we came up with fitted the theme. We just added horns if it didn't. So, I'm here if you have any questions. That wasn't that bad. Or just follow up on email or Twitter. And should also probably be noted that we have a couple of openings in our organization, so check out the Skillshop thing.